Hey everyone, your local expert Josh here with another episode of Broker Talk, and today we're going to do an old-fashioned book report for a book that I've read recently called Local is Our Future. The book itself was written by Helen Norberg-Hodge, and it has some really interesting ideas in regards to how constant growth in the global economy has negative effects on not only our natural world but our local economies. Really interesting, and she goes through a lot of different topics in the book. I was going to kind of go over three basic themes that she was going over in the books and then kind of give a little bit of a conclusion about what I thought about the book. To really get the full vibe of this book, you should really check into and read it. Okay, so the three basic themes that she kind of goes through in this book. I have some notes here because I want to make sure I kept everything in order and got you guys some quality information. But the three basic themes that she goes through are transnational companies and government subsidies, the media, and food supply. So to go through the first one, she talks about how transnational companies, so companies that are so large that they deal in multiple countries, they're all over the world. Essentially, these global companies are, one, able to move capital wherever they want all over the world for a low cost, and they can search out the best places in the world where they can find or negotiate better labor laws, taxes, more lenient pollution. That's a big one, more lenient pollution laws that they can operate at a heavier margin for profit. It also drives companies and gives companies the ability to leverage their, I guess you say, economic power against smaller countries that might. Some of these companies are bigger than small countries, so they're so large that they can actually negotiate, labor law practices and things like that might be either not fair to the people that are serving them or less than the standard of what, let's say, we would establish here in the USA. One issue she arises from that, other than the ethical points, is essentially with a lot of these transnational and global companies is the inefficiencies of global trade. She goes through a number of examples on how this is the case, but the most clear examples that kind of really stuck out to me are countries or companies that essentially will trade globally tons and tons of product that they actually already produce in their area, but because of some sort of either loophole or efficiency that they've built in over many years, they're sending out, for example, they'll send out 20 tons of corn, right? They'll ship it out and then they'll ship back 20 tons of corn from some other country. So it's out and it's in type of thing, and it's very inefficient, right? So I might even be explaining it not to its full potential or full extent, but you kind of catch my point, is that there's a lot of inefficiencies going on. The second thing was the media. So the media, she talks about how Hollywood and the media glamorize urban living and living in the city and other aspects of globalization that become these almost stories for people. And she kind of talks about how city living in these large urban cities are really actually pretty inefficient, and they take up a lot of resources. To be in the city, you usually have a lot of unseen resources that are being used up. A lot of the times it's water, waste, and food. So you have not only a lot of water and waste that needs to be managed in those situations, highly concentrated in population, but because there's so much development, there's a lot less space for farmland, and a lot of the food that is being consumed in those areas is shipped in from other areas. So it takes the effort to ship in this food, and it can be inefficient to do that. So it costs a lot more. A lot of people don't see these costs, but obviously city living is more expensive than rural living, which we know in our area specifically. Living out in what we call the rural parts of our area as opposed to living downtown is different in cost for sure. Okay, so that's part of what she's talking about here as being kind of an issue, in that the media romanticizes living in big cities. Okay, And the third one, which is the one I'll probably talk about the most, is because I myself was a believer in the food chain, the food supply, right? I felt as though when I first read this book that, bigger is better type of thing. These big, huge farms that have maybe one crop that they grow, well, then they're doing it right. They're being super efficient. They're growing one crop, they're shipping it out, when in all actuality, those types of farming are not as efficient. So per acre, those large-scale farms that only have one crop are typically not as efficient as the smaller farms that have a variety of crops that actually give out portions of the crops to the community. Not give out, but they essentially have membership programs where community members will come in and take and claim a portion of their crops, right? And how this is more efficient is because these people are, one, more efficient per acre, right? They're using less pesticides, they're using less things that are harmful to the environment, they're yielding more per acre, they're not using packaging and things like that are inefficient, large-scale travel to transport their product, all these things they're not doing, and they're serving the communities from the land that they live in through all of these situations. It's really interesting. At the end, she talks about how people can affect change in their community. And it's really simple. And it also goes hand in hand with stuff that we've talked about in the past. How you affect change is, one, realizing that there's options out there where you can look to, one, with your local food, look for local food. In our area, we are very lucky. We have the ability to get into membership farms and contact a local farm and say, hey, we'd like to get into a membership where we can get monthly supplies of things from you, whether it be vegetables, fresh vegetables, whatever they have going on during that season. So that's really important. That can really help out. Okay. Other things that you can do is make sure that you're looking to local business, because part of that globalization, part of that decentralization of local economies comes through franchises. Franchises were created to offer a service at scale, right, without having to worry about the issues of geographical limits. So what I mean by that is, when you build a procedure, you create a franchise, you're wanting to offer the same procedure to people at scale, right? But when you do that, you typically generate fees and everything that comes with it, where people have a stake in the revenue that's generated in a local economy, and that can be an issue down the road. So just keep in mind of those things. People can affect change if they make decisions based on knowledge, make decisions based on what's best for the local community, that you can, one, afford, two, that that we have a service for. So these are all things that you have to take into consideration, but there are areas where you can affect change if you make that decision. So I encourage everybody to read this book if you're interested. Again, I'll put that in the comments tab. Please put comments below. If you have comments, please feel free to put comments below. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.